What is up, everybody? Matt Parrino here from NYUpInSyracuse.com, live in Casey's Tavern in Black Rock, Buffalo, New York, and I'm here with the man, Sal Cappaccio, WGR 550, my favorite jingle. Sal Cappaccio. I tell him every time I see you, I pretty much bring it up, right?
Yeah, you do, and it's become kind of taken on a life of its own. And no matter where we go, you've been around. We've hung out at different cities away, and people just come up and sing the song randomly, which is crazy. I have Tom Sitch to thank for the song, former producer of Chopin the Bulldog. Of course, it's from, say, Geronimo, right? But it's been great, and it's kind of become a brand, so it's really cool, so I appreciate it.
So we have a big game to talk about.
Yep.
Buffalo Bills, Houston Texans. The Bills haven't won a playoff game since 1995, but before we get to the game itself, I wanted to start with where we are with this football team. Going into the season, expectations, they varied. I predicted 10 wins. I think I was, in my heart of hearts, a little bit more optimistic than probably I even was going into the season. But how they've been good is how I thought they'd be good, and that's Josh Allen taking some steps forward, this defense being really good and finding some playmakers.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I felt that they could get to 9 wins, maybe an outside shot at 10. I predicted they'd be in a very, very legitimate playoff race, Matt, with a few weeks to go. Not only was that the case, they exceeded that by actually clinching a playoff spot, Week 15 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously. So I felt the same way as you, and, really to me, it came down to, could Josh Allen take that next step? Because I think with the offensive line, you saw the revamped group they got. They brought in John Brown, Cole Beasley. To me, it showed, okay, he's going to at least have some more opportunities. It's not going to be the greatest offense. This isn't the greatest show on turf, LA Rams, but, St. Louis Rams at the time. But he'll have opportunities. And then, the backbone for this team to me was always the defense. And I had no concerns. People kept bringing up to me, well, it's hard for defenses to maintain that level of consistency on a year-to-year basis. That is true, but this defense was young. This defense was basically, together last year and some the year before. Underneath Sean McDermott, underneath Leslie Frazier, I knew they would have a really good opportunity to be really good again.
Mm-hmm. So the Houston Texans and Buffalo Bills, I think most Bills fans, this Texan team was the matchup that they coveted. I mean, if you take the top 4 teams, the Ravens, the Patriots, the Kansas City Chiefs, and this Houston Texans team, this is a team that not only did the Bills look pretty good against last season, but it's a team that I think on both sides of the ball, they match up pretty well. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball, and Deshaun Watson. Last year, under 250 total yards. DeAndre Hopkins had that one big touchdown grab, but Tre'Davious White did a pretty good job on him. So with their offense, what does this Bills defense have to do to contain them, which in turn will allow their offense to try to do some things?
Well, I think it really comes down to not allowing the big play. That's what Houston's all about. They want to have the big play. Deshaun Watson specializes in the big play, and he can have it. And if he gets a couple big plays, he can turn a game. He can change a game based on that. And he got that big play last year, despite the numbers. The big play came from a pass interference. I mean, that's really how they did it. They threw it up for grabs, and he's going to do that. And I talked with a couple of guys in the locker room this week, a couple of Bills DBs, who told me he'll give them opportunities, but they got to take advantage, and they can't let the Houston Texans take advantage. So to me, it's about limiting the big plays for Deshaun Watson. I think the Bills will do a pretty good job against the Texans' run game. I think they do have an ability to throw out of the backfield. At times, that has been, an area where the Bills have had some concerns, but I think overall they're pretty good in that regard. But I think overall, it's all about Deshaun Watson. And McDermott and Frazier have done a good job at coming up with a game plan to really contain teams that revolve around the quarterback like this. Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady for the most part, Deshaun Watson last year, and hopefully this year.
Interesting little nugget that you and I found out today in the locker room. Ray McCloud, again, is being used a little bit to kind of simulate what Deshaun Watson can do. They work a lot of those RPOs where, Lorenzo Alexander even said the deception that a few of these guys like Watson, like Jackson can use with the football keeps defenses off their toes. But I think that this defense last year, 7 sacks against Deshaun Watson, they really, stayed in their lanes, they contained him, and a lot of that had to do with the interior pressure. Kyle Williams was here last year. 2 sacks in that game. This year, Kyle Williams isn't there, but there's 2 guys that I think are big keys in this game. Jordan Phillips, the sack leader for the Bills, and rookie Ed Oliver, who has stepped up a bit in big moments. You look back at that Dallas Cowboys game where he really had his coming out party. I think that he could have a real big impact in this game with a lackluster offensive line for the Texans.
And he's going back to Houston, where he played his college football. So he's going to obviously be a little bit more jacked for that. He was in Texas when he had that big Thanksgiving Day game against the Dallas Cowboys. Lots of family and friends came to watch him play. I think he's had a really good second half at Oliver, and it's more about the fact that he's fit into this defense. He understands his role. He's talked about that. And you're right, he's going to have opportunity in this game. And Jordan Phillips, big stage for him. He's had 9.5 sacks, really nice year. But again, I think just this defense is more about the sum than it is the parts, right? And you have Shaq Lawson, who's had, I think, a really nice step up here. How healthy will he be? Hopefully he'll be able to play. I think Jerry Hughes, Trent Murphy had a couple sacks. It's really about collectively as a unit. The Bills don't have that elite guy that gets to the quarterback, but they did a nice job all season. I'll give you a great stat. The Bills actually, believe it or not, 10th in the league in sacks per pass attempt.
Wow.
Now, they don't have the numbers, right, that you look at and say, oh my God, they don't jump off the page. But in overall sacks per pass attempt on the opponent, the Bills were 10th in the league at getting to the quarterback.
Wow, pretty impressive stuff. And that defense has been impressive all year. I'm Matt Parrino. He is Sal Cappaccio from WGR 550. Joining me today out here at Casey's Tavern in Black Rock. We're having some fun. Cool arcade in the back. I want to give a shout out to Vinny because such an awesome time.
I got to retweet. Did you tweet us that we're out here?
Yeah, you got to retweet it.
I'll tweet it right now.
All right.
That way everybody who's watching knows. Go ahead.
So another big matchup that everybody's talking about is Tre'Davious White versus DeAndre Hopkins. And I think that the Bills' secondary in general is a big talking point because obviously Levi Wallace, Taron Johnson got banged up both in the last game. Taron Johnson was pretty good coming out of the game, but Levi Wallace was back at practice today. But one of the cool stories that I think not enough people are talking about, and I'm writing about it today for the site tomorrow, is Siran Neal. What a cool story. A guy that came into the league as a safety, has found his role as a special teams player, but he's being asked to play, came in at safety, he's been asked this year to play slot corner, and then they slung him outside to play outside corner. And really, a lot of people are impressed with the way that he played last week.
I mean, you could even call him a nickel linebacker in a lot of ways. He's the big nickel is what he is that Sean McDermott brought over from Carolina with the Shaq Thompson role that he used to play there, right? Really, Siran's been that guy. You're right. In fact, what I wrote about, and I have it our website today, is Bills awards for 2019. I gave an offensive MVP, a defensive MVP, and a special teams MVP. And I gave Siran Neal the special teams MVP along with Reed Ferguson.
Your man.
140 snaps. All of them great.
Yeah.
They did not have a problem this year. Punts, punts, field goals, extra points. But looking into Siran Neal's numbers, he led the team with 8 special teams tackles. He also, on special teams, had a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and you're right, embracing that role. Because I think as a rookie last year, I watched Siran Neal a little bit. I got the sense that he felt maybe he should be playing a little bit on defense, and he was used sparingly. And I think it took him to really get ingrained to Sean McDermott's culture about what it takes to contribute to a team and be a part of a team in your 111th. And his 111th is primarily on the special teams 111th. He's done a great job. Definitely.
Moving over to the offensive side of the ball, and that's where I think most fans, if they're worried about this matchup, that's where they're probably worried about it because, Josh Allen has taken so many steps this season, and we talked about it over and over again. The way that he's played the last 9 weeks, I think are, as a playmaker, one of the, best playmakers in the league. And I'm not saying that in terms of, I'd rather have him than Ezekiel Elliott. I'm saying that with the ball in his hands, he is a dangerous man, whether it be through the air, where he's had some really good games. Cool stat for Bills fans. Josh Allen, 2 touchdowns against the New England Patriots. Only 2 quarterbacks have thrown 2 touchdowns or more against the Patriots defense this season. Josh Allen and Deshaun Watson, and they play this weekend. I want to start with the secondary of the Texans because they're banged up. Jonathan Joseph, Bradley Roby, who has been really good for them, actually. I tweeted out a few plays that he's made the last couple weeks. A ball hawk, if you're not careful. They have hamstring injuries. So it could be an opportunity for John Brown, Cole Beasley, guys like Dawson Knox to really impact this game in the passing game. But Josh Allen's got to make those plays.
If you go back to Josh Allen's short career, he's had 3 games in a dome. One was there in Houston, also in Minnesota last year, and then in Dallas this year. He's been very good. I ran some of the numbers. He's had an excellent QBR, quarterback rating, 70% completion percentage basically in these dome games. These controlled environments, on the road even, he's been very good in these situations. I think that will help him a lot, obviously. But you're right. Look, this Texans secondary will have opportunities for them. Now, they do have a front 7 that can kind of get after you a little bit, and they can cause you some plays and some problems, especially J.J. Watt. We don't know exactly how effective he's going to be. I don't think that you can be super effective coming off a pack after 2.5 months and going right to playoff speed. But they will have an opportunity. And you're right. I think John Brown, Cole Beasley, there's going to be chances for that for Josh Allen. Josh Allen, 29 total touchdowns this year. That's a nice number.
Sixth in the league.
That's a nice number for him. Now, people can look at his completion percentage. It's not where you want it. You still want it up there. But there's a lot of numbers to love. He's the only quarterback in the entire NFL, out of the regular starters, the only quarterback in the entire NFL that did not have a fourth quarter interception this year.
Yeah, and that's where he plays his best football.
Right.
And what I'd argue is the progression that he's made with taking care of the football is more important than any of the progressions that he could be made with throwing the football, because with this defense, you're going to be in most games. If you shoot yourself in the foot, that's when, guys like Sean McDermott, Brian Dable, that's when they're kind of pulling their hair out, what hair they have. In Sean McDermott's case. Well, in both of their cases, actually. Sorry, my man. But anyway, we're at Casey's Tavern in Black Rock. Really awesome setting.
Box.
Yeah, it's the penalty. I should go in the penalty box. They got a cool one behind them. Memorabilia all over the place. The owner, Vinny, great guy. He actually is a Kansas City Chiefs fan, but he pulls for the Bills because he wants, obviously, all of his...
I found out tonight he's my neighbor.
Really?
He literally lives 3 doors down from me. There is a Chiefs flag hanging 3 doors down from me. It's Vinny's. It's
That's
him.
Unbelievable.
He lives on my street. I had no idea.
That's Buffalo.
That's Buffalo.
That's Buffalo.
That's right.
But, you brought up J.J. Watt, and, there was a report out today that Romeo Crennel, interviewed by the Houston media, basically said, we don't want to put him in a situation where we're asking him to do too much out there. Get too strenuous after he's been out of action for 8 weeks, coming off an injury. That was my point of contention when it was made or announced that J.J. was going to be back, is that 8 weeks out of football, the conditioning is not going to be there.
No.
You're not going to be able to dial up that consistent pass rush. And actually, in a roundabout way, Cody Ford and this offensive line, they've done pretty good against the elite level pass rushers this season.
Yeah, and 2 things about Watt's return on top of that. Number 1, it's kind of become about J.J. Watt a little bit.
Right.
It's always about J.J. Watt, isn't it? It's where it should be about the team, and it kind of seems like there's so much focus on J.J. Watt. You wonder in Houston, is that taking away of what their preparation is for the game, because it's so much on him, and he's no stranger to the spotlight, obviously. Here's the second thing. We see offensive linemen all the time. We know about technique, and they go and they get their hands out there. Well, guess what? Now you got to punch him right here, Matt, right? Punch him right there, and we'll see. And maybe that'll test that pec right away.
Right.
I don't know.
Speaking of working on your technique, saw Ty Nsekhe out on the practice field after practice today. He was really getting after it, working on, some technique. I think working on that ankle to see how it felt. Called Bobby Johnson over for a little while. They were working together. And that's a big piece of this thing. You look at some of the successful drive this Bills team has had throughout the season. It's been when Cody Ford's come off the field and Ty Nsekhe, the veterans, come in and worked on that right side. So how important is at least the availability of Ty Nsekhe?
I think it's very important if he can be available, but I have a lot of faith now what I've seen from Cody Ford.
Right.
He's gone against some pretty good pass rushers in the time that he's had to play. Now, it hasn't been all completely rainbows and unicorns for him out there, but they've won games. He's done a pretty good job, but you're right. I think Ty Nsekhe brings a little bit more of a calming presence out there. He's a veteran. He's seen it. He's done it. And he's had a pretty good year when he's played. So that's more than anything, the availability, because if something were to happen to Cody Ford, you have a guy like Ty Nsekhe. And, of course, if he's not available, they would make another offensive lineman available. But I think to have him, your right tackle, who has started in this league and played predominantly most of the first half, that would be a big boost.
If you have any questions, obviously we're live on Facebook, Periscope, whatever you got, let us have it. We'll be here for another few minutes. But in terms of key players in this game that you feel like matchup-wise could make an impact, but also players that need to make an impact in this game, where are you starting?
Devin Singletary. The Houston Texans have allowed over 170 yards on the ground average over the last 3 weeks.
Right.
If you go back the second half of the year, completely different than the first half. First half, they were pretty much shutting running games down. Second half, big numbers. They've given up twice in the second half of the year, including last week, over 240 yards on the ground. Right. Now, once was against Baltimore. It pretty much does that against a lot of teams. But again, the same thing happened last week against Tennessee. And I know they're playing some backups, but they've allowed some big numbers. I think Devin Singletary getting that run game going is a very big deal for the Bills. And if they can, I think that is where Josh Allen can really start to take advantage of things.
I got 2 kind of here. First is a key to the game. It's taking care of the ball on special teams. You go back to last season, 2 fumbles 100%. By Ray McCloud on punt returns. The second led to an initial score. You look at some of the games that the Houston Texans have been successful this year, it's when they turn turnovers into points. They did against Tom Brady. They had an interception, they scored, they never trailed in the game. You can't let them get out early in this game. On the offensive side of the ball, Cole Beasley. I think this could be a Cole Beasley game. He, too, has seemed to play well in domes. He played in Dallas.
Yep.
He really kind of popped in that game, and I feel like the continuity between he and Josh Allen has only grown over the course of the season, and he could be a real dangerous weapon with a secondary that's completely banged up. And oh, by the way, we didn't mention Tashawn Gibson, their strong safety, who's put on IR yesterday. So they're really, really banged up in that secondary.
Yeah, and I think maybe that allows someone like Dawson Knox to be able to have a few opportunities, right, as a tight end. We saw him come a long way. I'll give you a key, and it's going to go to special teams as well. Stephen Hauschka had a 50-yarder he made. He was like a 52-yarder, I think it was, in this stadium last year. I talked to him today about kicking in a dome and, how different that is. And, it seems like, he's so used to and has the challenges of the wind and everything at New Era Field that kicking in a dome is a nice little relief for him to get there. And he said he likes kicking there. He's kicked there a couple times, and it's a place he's had success. So getting those field goals. Look, this might be a close game. Vegas makes it a 3-point game. There's nothing wrong with field goals sometimes. Yes, you want to get 7 points. That's the cliche. You get in the red zone. And I agree with that. But there's nothing wrong with coming away with a field goal if you're at the 30-yard line or so and you stall on 4th down and the Bills can get some 3 points there.
Good question. Go ahead.
First one, will Duke Williams be active this weekend?
I can't believe we got this far in the show and didn't talk about Duke Williams. Obviously, he had a big game last week. 12 targets, he caught half of them, 6 for over 100 yards. So now he's got a 100-yard game this season. He had a game-winning touchdowns against the Titans. And he's a guy that this fan base really wants in the game. And Sean McDermott knows that. But I would argue that he doesn't bring the versatility that an Isaiah McKenzie brings. And I think that's why they still have Isaiah McKenzie active and not Duke Williams, because I think Robert Foster, he's separate from this because he's their gunner now.
Yeah, and look, they're still developing Duke Williams. He's under a 3-year contract. This organization has operated all along with both the small and the big picture in mind.
Right.
The here and now and the development. And I think that's Robert Foster, and I think that's Duke Williams. And people wondering early on why Robert Foster's not playing, and you can still wonder that. But really, they're trying to develop these guys while they have other guys that play. I don't know if Duke Williams is going to be active, but I'll say this. I would agree that he's earned a shot. And I'm not going to sit there and clamor and hit the table for him. But after last week, I think he proved that he can, handle whatever's thrown at him. And I love that he was able to get yards after the catch. I think that's something this team doesn't get enough of. John Brown has touchdowns, and we know he can run once he catches it. And Cole Beasley's had a few like that. But, boy, Duke is hard to bring down. He showed some elusiveness. He does help in the run game. The problem is, if you activate Duke Williams, how much is he really playing?
Right.
That's the problem. And you have to offset that with somebody else who you might actually need for important roles. So, look, I'm not against Duke Williams playing at all, but I completely understand why he's not playing.
I agree, and I don't think that you can bench Andre Roberts
for
him, because that like I mentioned, that is an important part of this game. You have to be able to be sound fundamentally in special teams.
No doubt, and I'll even go add on to that. It's not just you have to be sound fundamentally, which you need a guy like Andre Roberts. Matt, this team struggles to score points.
Right.
Andre Roberts at least offers you a threat to maybe get a freebie.
Right.
Now, he hasn't happened yet,
right,
but he's been close. But what if you have a chance to at least you have a guy that might take one to the house and you say, that's 7 points my offense doesn't have to get.
Right, exactly. We have another question.
Is Will Fuller expected to play, and could that be a difference maker for the Texans?
The last report I saw is that he's trending to play. They're still not confirming. He's limited in practice, as is, a laundry list. Laramie Tunsil's been limited this week. Obviously, J.J. Watt back on the injury report today. But I think that Will Fuller was active last year. I think he brings a dynamic, and he's always a threat, but he's dealing with a groin injury, which for a wide receiver, that's always difficult to deal with, even if you feel like you've fully rehabbed it. And the initial report was that he was going to miss this game. So he's probably not going to be at 100%. And I think that the Bills have the horses in the secondary, a motivated group. You talk about Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, two veterans that have played together for 3 years. I like my odds with those guys and the talent that they have inside in the slot and outside with Tre'Davious White against Will Fuller.
Well, and look, you mentioned the groin injury. He's battled a lot of injuries.
Right.
If you have him in fantasy football, you know that Will Fuller has been injured a lot. And I don't know how effective a guy can be coming off a groin that was supposed to take him out of the game, even if he does play. So maybe, we'll see. He's a fabulous player. He's helped their offense a lot. Their offensive numbers, Matt, are way better when he plays than when they are. I'll put it this way. Will Fuller would have a much bigger impact, I think, if Levi Wallace can't play. Because the Bills are very thin at corner.
Right.
And if Levi Wallace can't go and it's just Kevin Johnson and Taron Johnson, sure, those guys can play a lot. But, man, you're a twisted ankle away maybe from somebody you don't want covering Will Fuller having to go out there on him.
So before we get out of here, if you have questions, we didn't get to them. We've been going a little while. I want to go eat some food because this is my second show of the night. Before we get out of here, final prediction, if you have one. Where do you think this game? How is this game going to be won, and what happens?
All right. So I forgot to tell you not to ask me for a specific prediction because I got to save that for my radio audience. All right, I got to tease that for the round table on Saturday.
We don't get it all with Sal Cappaccio.
Right?
Okay,
however, I'll say this: I like the Bills' chances here. I really think that, and I've said this for a while now. You give Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier a week, 6 days here, whatever, to prepare for anybody. They're going to come up with a good game plan. They're going to give their team a chance. I like the Bills' chances here. We've been talking, and we talked before you got back here to Buffalo last year. The drought. It was 17 years. The drought. They finally broke it. Well, Matt, there's another drought. You brought it up at the beginning. The playoff win drought. 1995, 24 seasons. The Bills have the third longest win drought in the league. Playoff win drought. Cincinnati's number 1, Detroit's number 2. So without giving away the prediction, I'll say I think the Bills have a pretty good shot of ending that playoff win drought.
Look at this. What a journalist. You know, you brought us back to the lead at the close of the show.
There you go.
I really appreciate that. You know, I think that the Bills are, two things. I think that Josh Allen and this offense are going to come out fast. It's been a point of emphasis. No pregame jitters. You've done that already. It's a big game, but you know what you have to do. You have to come out here, and you have to be drooling a little bit about this matchup. You're going against a beat-up secondary and defense that's allowing 267 passing yards per game. So they come out, they score first, and I think it's going to be 28-21.
Over 6 yards a play. They are 31st in the league in total yards per play allowed. I mean, the Bills have an opportunity here. And by the way, the other thing is, I talked about Devin Singletary. They give up some long runs. I think they're the 4th most runs of 40 yards or more given up this year, and they've given up a bunch of yards, 20 yards or more. So the Bills might have. When have we said this? Big play by the Bills. You really don't see as much,
right?
But they might have an opportunity here.
And hot take before we get out of here, I would activate T.J. Yeldon before I'd activate Duke Williams. But,
all right.
We'll see what happens. For Sal Cappaccio, WGR550 at Sal Sports on Twitter. My man, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
We are headed down
Safe
to Houston.
Yes, safe travels.
I'm going tomorrow. You'll be down on Friday.
Absolutely.
Find him on the sideline, as always. NYUpsyracuse.com. We'll have you covered with all your Bills content all week. Periscope. Thank you, my guys. I appreciate it.